sponsors. So these are our 2022 sponsors, and they invest in our programs and make sessions like this possible. So they create these kind of spaces for us, and we want to thank them and recognize their support. And 2023 sponsorship opportunities are available soon. So when you join us next month, there'll be a new slate of people, but we just want to kind of recognize their support and all they do for us and the community. And I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Sherry Villanueva, and I'm going to read Sherry's introduction because her bio is very impressive. So Sherry is the founder and managing partner of ACME Hospitality, and you will know ACME because they are the owner and operator of Santa Barbara's favorite restaurants, including The Lark, Lucky Penny, Pearl Social, Helena Avenue Bakery, Santa Barbara Wine Collective, La Quita, and La Paloma Cafe, and I might have missed one or two. And if that wasn't impressive enough, in 2019, Sherry launched ACME Lodging, which is a hotel development management company, and they already have 2 historic properties in California. Before ACME, Sherry spent 25 years in marketing and most recently was the founder and partner of a boutique trend research agency, and they worked with Target for 12 years. Sherry's a local resident and she's very committed to the community, and you'll see her connected with lots of nonprofits. She's been a supporter and volunteer with organizations like Direct Relief, Storyteller Children's Center, Santa Barbara Food Bank, Santa Barbara Middle School, Santa Barbara High School Education Foundation. She's the mother of 2 adult daughters, and the most recent thing that she added to her resume is grandmother. So that's very cool. And last week, the Pacific Coast Business Times announced their 50 most influential leaders in the region list. And Sherry is being recognized there for not the first time. And so it's congratulations, Sherry, on that. Well, wow, Sherry. It's a perk of the job to get to interview very cool, cool people. But how did you get started with ACME? I mean, you've done so much. Can you tell us a bit about how you got started? Sure.
You know, I as you mentioned, had a long and, you know, wonderful career, really focused mostly in marketing, branding, and trend research. When the economy kind of took a nosedive in 2008, I found myself no longer working at Target and really sort of looking for something to do closer to home. I had spent a lot of years with Target traveling all over the world, helping them identify emerging trends. And so I started looking around to really feeling the need to be a part of something in my community. I had been very involved in the nonprofit world, as you mentioned, but not in the business world because I was working for Target, who was far away in Minneapolis. So that led me one thing to another, a few consulting projects along the way. I've always had a love of the way food can connect people and sort of the interconnection that people create with one another around a table, around good food, good wine. And so I really knew I wanted to kind of lean into that sort of spirit of community building through food. And that, you know, sort of one thing led to another. And I was actually hired by a real estate developer to help. He had purchased a number of properties in the Funk Zone, and he came to me and said, I know this is great real estate and I'm excited about, you know, the investment in sort of restoring some of these historic buildings within the Funk Zone, but I don't know what to put inside of them. You've been doing trend research, you know what's happening out in the world. Can you help me program these various properties? And so that's how it started. Through that exercise, you know, I came back with a plan that said, okay, put a hotel over here and a coffee shop over here and a restaurant over here and retail here. And then really said, you know, when you find a restaurateur who knows how to run a restaurant, you should put them right here in the middle, which was in the location where the Lark is currently located. And, you know, that property is sort of ground zero for what was the emerging Funk Zone at the time. So that was kind of how it started. I basically said, now go find yourself a restaurateur. The idea was born.
So how did you become a restaurant? You didn't have prior experience? Like, how did that come up? And then how did you get started? Did you write a business plan?
Yeah, so we started to look for a restaurateur who might know what she was doing. We had a number of people come forward with ideas and plans for the restaurant, kind of again in the middle of not only our project, but in the middle of this neighborhood. And in all honesty, we just were not inspired by what we were seeing, because the condition of the neighborhood at the time was somewhat, what's the right word? I was going to say dilapidated, but it had been ignored for a very long time. A lot of the plans that people were presenting were, not in an elevated way. Like, we wanted to do something elevated. We wanted to do something that was really going to drive the community, bring the whole community from all the corners of Santa Barbara County into one location. And we felt like an elevated concept would do that. And so through that process, and it was a hard sell at the time. I mean, even when I went to raise money to build the first restaurant, I had a lot of people, a lot of friends and colleagues say, you're crazy. It was basically a burned out building that was, about to fall down. And I was like, can't you see it? It's going to be so great. And a lot of people said, no, I can't see it. And I think that was kind of the problem we had in finding a restaurateur to take it on. So then I was just one of those, crossroads in life and defining moments that we rarely get the opportunity for, as women, as entrepreneurs. And you just say, I'm ready. I'm going to go, I'm going to take the leap. So I just raised my hand and said, I've always wanted to open a restaurant. How hard can it be? I hear it's hard, but how hard is it really? And so I just said, I'll do it. And then, yes, the very first thing, luckily, my husband has been in finance. He's a mentor to entrepreneurs mostly in East Africa, but throughout the developing world. And so I was very lucky to have a coach in him. And he basically said, all right, if you're really going to do this, where's your business plan? And that was when I embarked on writing my first business plan, which I had never written a business plan before. So it was an interesting challenge to write a business plan about a business that you really didn't know how to run either. So it was a very, I call it it was a vertical learning curve. There was no curve in it. It was straight up.
And at that time you were just planning on the lark. You just open this restaurant and that's the plan.
Correct. Yeah, it was only the lark. And again, the reason it was the lark was because we wanted something to be very community centered, a place that would really pull people together. And it was right in the middle of our project, in the middle of the neighborhood. So we felt like, if we're really trying to shift this neighborhood and really sort of bring, vibrancy to the neighborhood, a restaurant has the capability of doing that. Much different than other types of retail stores. And the right kind of restaurant that was really sort of this community resource, we felt was going to be the energy and kind of the driving force, and the revitalization of everything around it.
And, the funk zone's totally different today. It's like it really was the start of something. So what are you most proud of from that initial idea to where you are today?
I think what I'm most proud of is that, we have a company that's a great place to work. We spend a lot of time and energy thinking about investing in the employee experience. And when people come to work for us, we want it to be a place where they are proud to work, where they feel connected to the community, not only the greater community, but the community within the restaurant itself, their sort of restaurant family. We now have about 500 employees. And so I love that. I love to be a part of bringing, great jobs to 500 people that can take care of their families and afford to live not only in Santa Barbara County, but in the other counties that we work. And so I think that's the thing that drives me the most. That's why COVID was so particularly painful, when we had to lay everyone off, because it really, it hit at the core thing of, what is so important to us.
Mm-hmm. How, one of my next question was going to be like, what are some of the challenges and how did you overcome them? So maybe it was COVID, maybe something different, but how did you kind of, what's been your biggest challenge?
It's so interesting. We were just talking about this. There have been so many challenges, from fires and floods and COVID and, the mass depletion of the workforce and, crazy rising costs on costs of goods, and with, what's happening prices with many food products right now. And it just, every year, we've now been open for 10 years. It's our 10th anniversary this year. And, every year it's like, oh, well, we just get through the crisis of this year. But now 10 years later, we look back, we're like, we have been through a crisis. It feels like every year. And, I think it's another thing I'm very proud of is the resiliency of my team. This works because I have extraordinary people who work for me. That's really what makes the whole thing work. Some of them who've been with us from the very beginning. And it's really their resiliency and drive and sort of focus on what matters to us that keeps us strong. Yeah, it's been a lot. And we're just like, I wonder what the challenge is this year. It's not even like, are we going to get through it unscathed? It's like, bring it on.
Our kids are going to be the most resilient because this is all they've known is this.
True. Very true.
Sometimes when you see someone out in the community and they are super successful and they've launched, 10 concepts and winning all these awards, you sort of imagine that they never feel imposter syndrome. They never feel any of that. Do you ever feel that? And how do you overcome it if you do?
I feel like imposter syndrome is something I have struggled with since I was a kid. And for me, it gets harder and harder and more intense with the more that you do and the more you're able to accomplish and the further you push forward. How do you deal with it? I don't know. It's almost like you just fake it until you make it and you just keep pushing forward. And I think, for me, staying rooted in humility has also been very important to me. I feel so grateful, that I've had so many opportunities along the way and so many incredible people helping me. So I never feel like it's all me in the first place, because it just isn't. I'm the face and sort of the leader of the band out front, but it's really this collective effort that has made us successful. So I remember that a lot, because that's just the truth. And those help, sort of combat imposter syndrome as well, because, it's not just you. But I think as women and, professional women, it's something that at least most of my colleagues, we sort of share in the struggle of that. I think it's true even as a mom, right? I mean, I know as a mom, you just fake it till you figure it out. My daughter, who just became a mom herself, she's like, Mom, this is so hard. Like, how do you know? I'm like, you don't. That's the whole secret. None of us know. We're all just making it up as we go along. So I think being a mom has also helped me, kind of figure that out.
I love that you're saying fake it till you make it. Like I heard a version of that, which is like, be it till you believe it.
Yeah, same exact thing.
You're not faking it, you're doing it.
That's
but
right.
You need to catch up with that in your
and you take risks and you make bold decisions and you just go. And I think it's scary sometimes, but you know, I think if you believe in where you're going strong enough, it makes your march towards that much easier. And then yeah, suddenly you wake up and you get there. Like, oh, okay, now I'm marching to the next stop.
Next hotels. We've got a hotel.
Yeah.
So how many concepts has ACME launched? Does it like I said eight,
So we have 8 restaurants in Santa Barbara, and then we have 3 hotels. So we have 2 hotels in Northern California, in Nevada County, which is just kind of southwest of Tahoe. And then we have 1 hotel in Palm Springs.
And how do you manage like 500 people and 11 concerts? Like how do you manage all of that? Do you have mentors, do you have coaches? Like what
Sort of all of the above. We have a great team. That's just, you know, a group of just extraordinary people. We have a management company that we provide a lot of resources out to each of the businesses. So marketing, accounting, event planning, operations, HR, that sort of thing. So we've structured our company to be able to, we call ourselves high touch. So our leadership team is intimately involved in every one of the operations, in and out all the time, talking with the leaders there. Each one of the businesses has its own chef and GM, and so they're running theirs. You know, and I think it's also about having the right tools. We've spent a lot of time and money creating good systems and good tools. We use a lot of software. I would say we're probably a little more technologically integrated than many restaurant companies. And we use those tools to inform us, to give us the kind of information we need to make good decisions. And so I think that helps us a lot. You know, but it's been complicated. I mean, as you know, 500 people's and a lot of moving parts. So I think it's just having good leaders in all of the right places. You know, and I think Kate, you and I have talked about this before too. I think we're very committed to our core values, and we worked very hard on defining them, and we work very hard on implementing them and keeping everyone accountable to them. And when you're all marching to the same drum, if you will, when everyone is focused on the same core values, they have the same things that are important to them, that are non-negotiables, then I think it makes it a lot easier to manage lots of moving parts, because we all stay very clear on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Yeah, I had asked Sherry what's the secret to her success, and she was like, I think it's our core values. And we thought that was a good topic to chat about, because if you're at that stage, if you're just opening your first thing and you're a solopreneur, that can be something that you implement that can kind of inform your work. And so it's at that, when you get to the 500 people, it's valuable, but it can be valuable whatever your size is. So
well, and that was it for me. I mean, when I wrote my first business plan, this was now in 2010, you know, the first thing I wrote on it was the core values, and they have nothing to do with the restaurant business. They're about things like acting with integrity. And that was really the exercise of the business plan. If I'm going to start a business, I want it to stand for something. I want it to stand for community. I want it to really have that as a driving force, because that's what is the whole point of this. And so when you start there, and again, that was with one restaurant and one person, me by myself. But you have a principle that you can stand on, that you can then share with other people to say, this is what I'm building, this is where I'm going, these are the non-negotiables in how I'm going to get there. And then it makes it all a lot easier, because everyone, they either believe in that and they're on board with that, or they're not the right fit. And so you know, I think it's helped us tremendously. We've just spent time recently kind of re-looking at them. I have a gentleman who works for me named Skylar Gamble, who runs he's a director of people capital. So he runs all of our, the parts of our human resource experience. And he and I together embarked on about a 6-month journey of surveying all our managers and digging deep and asking hard questions and sort of putting these core values into words and pictures so that we can make sure all 500 people are marching to the same drum. And it's been just a great exercise. So even starting with them and then now 10 years reflecting on them, kind of both ends of that game has been valuable.
Can you give us some examples of what some of them are? And I know you sent me a beautiful
It's
information in there.
okay. Yeah.
What they are and how that applies, how you apply them.
Well, so there's really 4. Our mission statement that we've recently rewrote is really focused on caring for people. It's about, we say that we're in the happiness business, because at the end of the day, what we do is we take care of people. And it's our employee value proposition that when we're hiring employees and training them, we talk a lot about what your job is to care for people. We do it through food and beverage and beautiful spaces and fun experiences. That's how we take care of people. But what we do is we take care of people, and we try to meet our guests where they are at any given moment. They come into our spaces sometimes for celebrating, sometimes grieving, sometimes negotiating in a business, conversation. There's all different reasons our guests come into our spaces, and we feel it's our job and really our privilege to care for them where they are, and to use all the tools in our toolbox. And we try to be the absolute best in food and wine and spirits and all the things that we feel like will make that guest experience really special. But at the end of the day, it's people taking care of people. And so that's been an important refocus. And a lot of our team, when you explain that to them, even someone in the kitchen who's, working on a station, on a hotline, that they're taking care of people too. And it's important to remind them of that. They're not just pumping out Brussels sprouts. So, that's been a big part of it. And then the 4 core values that we've sort of centered our pillars around have to do with community. They have to do with integrity, excellence. We like to say we only have one standard, and that's excellence. Anything short of that doesn't work. And so it's a daily drive to be a little bit better today than we were yesterday, every day. So for 10 years, we're just constantly pushing excellence in every way we can. And then our 4th core value is about originality. And we like that because we want each of our guest experiences to be very unique and very special. And we celebrate the originality of all of our team. We, are very focused on inclusivity, making sure that our company is a welcoming company for people of all ages, genders, you name it, races, whatever. We pride ourselves and be very inclusive, and want to create the kind of work experience for people where they feel honored and recognized for their differences as part of this, kind of beautiful fabric of a team that we've woven together. So so those are really our core values. None of them have anything to do with food, which I think is the point of it all.
I think it's brilliant though, because I get decision fatigue in my role, and I don't have all of these different concepts. And so having like that North Star of like, is it this? Okay, then it kind of can help cut through the noise, I think.
Yeah. Exactly.
I heard this story about somebody went to NASA, and they were the president was getting a tour, and he was talking to like someone in the janitorial team, and he was like, "What's your role? What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm sending someone to the moon." And he was like, "My job is getting the men to the moon," and it is about that. It's like we're all on this mission. Yeah, that.
Absolutely.
So, what advice would you give to some people just starting their journey or partway through their journey and maybe at a pivot point or saying, do I dive in or something like that? What advice would you give somebody else?
I think I, I know for me and all the pivot points that I've had and all the self-doubts, and it's usually the middle of the night, lots of tears and fear, and what if I can't do it? What if I'm not good enough? It's all those things. All these people are counting on me. Um, it can be overwhelming. It can be very stressful, even as a solopreneur, as you were saying, when someone's starting out and you're risking so much, right? You're risking sometimes money, sometimes time, sometimes reputation, relationships. I mean, there's just so much on the line. And I think for me, it was just staying focused on the mission. Like, what is it that I'm marching towards? What am I trying to accomplish? Learning practices to just let go of the fear and sort of use the fear to inform your decisions, right? So instead of fighting against the fear, it was like, okay, I'm going to lean into it. I'm going to actually understand what I'm afraid of, and how I can make smarter decisions to mitigate against those things that feel, scary in front of me. And just to keep going. I mean, that's like we have my family, we have an expression that just says, keep going, keep going. If you believe in it, you can see it. I mean, that was for me, I think probably the biggest thing when I first wrote my very first business plan, was I could see it. I could, and then I had to put it on paper so that other people could see it. And then I had to like convince people to give me millions of dollars so that they could see it. And so if you don't see it, then it makes it almost impossible for you to be able to bring those other critical people on your journey, whether it's funders, banks, employees, there's, even working through the city and the complicated navigation of permitting and licensing and everything you have to do on the city side. You have to see it and believe it, because if you don't, the driver, then it's very hard to get all those people behind you who you desperately need. Nobody can do it alone. It takes a whole village of people to make it happen, in every business plan, right? Because you're dealing with landlords, you're dealing with governmental agencies, you're dealing with customers. So I think the most important thing for me is to stay super clear on your vision and never let it go. Just like I was like a pit bull, there's relentless, I'm going to make this happen.
Love that. Well, I have one more question for you, but I wanted to invite people, if anyone has a question for Sherry, they want to put it in the chat, because I know you want to take a minute to think about that. But my question is, what's next for you in your business? Do you have a new vision? Is there a
So our vision is we're in a growth mode. For me, I don't want to grow so much that we ever, sort of lose the high touch that is very important to us. There's, a small handful of us at the leadership level. And so I never want to be so big that, we've had a lot of opportunities come from various outside investors and other people. Let's open 100 Lucky Pennies. And I'm just like, yeah, it's just that's not the growth that is of interest to me. If I'm going to open another Lucky Penny, I want to be there and be able to know all the people who work there and be able to help direct the experience. And so we're in a very controlled growth mode, I would say. We have several projects currently in our pipeline. We're opening 2 restaurants this year in San Juan Capistrano. And then next year we'll be opening a hotel and a 3rd restaurant in San Juan. And so that's kind of our growth strategy, is to be more regional, where we would have 4 or 5 businesses collected in one particular area, because again, it allows us to put leaders in place that can have that high touch, that can make sure that all the parts are working properly. So we're excited about those projects. Right now, that's our only growth plans that are firm. You know, we'd love to expand, you know, so I saw in the chat, to Ventura or to San Ynez Valley where I live, or to, you know, close by, Ojai and, you know, even up into San Luis Obispo. Those are all places that we would love to expand, because again, you know, we love this region and would love to be able to, you know, integrate ourselves deeper into the communities, into that kind of, you know, not immediate Santa Barbara, but sort of next circle out in our community.
I love that your slow growth is like 2 restaurants and a hotel. It's slow.
Well,
but the cluster model, I think is, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. Speaking of growth, Corolla asked, can people invest in your company? This is not a sales pitch.
Yeah, it's not a sales pitch. No. And I would say absolutely. We're actually just about to go out and fundraise for our San Juan projects, literally like next week. All of our businesses have a structure that have outside investors. So we brought in different investors into every single one of the restaurants and hotels. We love that model because we love having advocates and ambassadors and people who are truly invested in the restaurant be a part of our kind of overall mix. So that's been a really fun way to structure it, and gotten to know lots of really interesting people. In every single one of our restaurants, we've had rollover. So an investor who invested in the Lark and then rolled over and wanted to invest in Lokita. So that 100% of the time we've had rollover of people saying, okay, what's next? And we've kind of give them first priority as opportunities come up. But there's always room for new people to come in too. So I would say if anyone is interested, just email me offline and I'd be happy to, you know, give you more information about it.
And then Sarah asks, you know, housing is a bit of a challenge in Santa Barbara. Any plans to move into housing?
Oh my gosh, housing is such a problem. My daughter is just moving to Santa Barbara next week. And it was a very painful process for her and her young family. So I got to witness it firsthand of what that looks like for a young couple trying to find affordable housing in Santa Barbara, and it's very grim. It's heartbreaking. So no, I do not have any plans to do housing, although if someone does, I would love to be an ardent supporter and do whatever I can to help them, because it's such a huge need. So many of our employees, I mean, we have, you know, they're commuting from Ventura or they're commuting from North County, and it's really, it's not what makes our community strong. So, you know, I think housing is probably the single largest issue in front of us in Santa Barbara County. Very, very important.
Yeah. All right. Well, the next person asked about, can you share our email? And I'll just share, there will be a poll after the breakout rooms to see if people want to share that. We have people opt in. So anyone who wants to share their email, you say yes in the poll. After the session later today, I'll email out the email messages to the people that want to opt in.
Yeah, and I'm happy to opt in if anyone wants to reach me. So
well, thank you for sharing, Sherry.